Hello crafty cuties, welcome back to Paper Terrace. If you're new, I am Jessica. Today I wanted to do a tabletop view tutorial of a window journal like this. This one actually has a little pocket in the back so that this window can just be a see-through window. And then like on this one, you can kind of see I have a little fairy door on the first page, which I thought was cute. But I like having the option of having that pocket. And I did this on a live video, which is not always the best viewing if you actually wanted to learn and make one yourself. So I thought that we would go ahead and make one together here. So I have some things prepped. We're going to reuse a box. Definitely recommend this. Awesome. It's a great base. I have some folders here because I do want to make it a little bit more sturdy or thick. And then I have some transparency films. I just wanted to kind of point this out because I like using this for any acetate pockets or windows like this. So we're going to get started with, I'm using one of these Tim Holtz baseboard windows, and I want to start out by cutting out the window. And let's see, I'm trying to think, where do I want it? I'm probably just going to do kind of centered towards the top. Now this is like a wide open window, so I was deciding if I wanted to have it open like that other journal, or you could also put an image in the window and just have that. But I kind of like the idea of having it see-through, and then you could change that out. So I'm going to trace, around where I want to cut. And this part's kind of important. So you're going to trace the exact size of the window, but then there's a couple things you need to think about. If you want your window to be more on the inside, like an inlay, let me show you what I mean with this one real quick. So if you can see, this window it's not laying above the journal cover, it's inset. That's not the word, that's a weird word. But it's setting into the journal cover. So there's no, there's nothing poking out on this journal cover. And I really like that, but I kind of wanted to make these all a little bit different. So if you want to do that one, you're going to want to make sure that you definitely cut maybe even basically exactly the window width so that it can push down in there, maybe even a tad bit bigger than the window. But I'm going to have this one kind of setting on top and being a little bit more dimensional. So for that, I am going to want to cut out my window shape a little bit less than the window. So somewhere like in between the width here, if that makes any sense. You'll see what I mean as we go along. I'm just using my awl to poke a hole to get started here. And I'm just going to carefully cut. And again, I want to leave some extra border on the inside of this one. And I'm not going to worry about measuring it, but I'm just kind of eyeballing, and I know that I want it to be a little bit less than what the window width is. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but I would definitely say, take your time. And since we're using cardboard here, it's pretty easy to cut through. Oh, that's right. I do have those folders if I wanted to make this any sturdier, but that's okay. We'll work with that when we get there. Now I'm going to try this out first. There we go. I'm going to try this out by placing this on top and seeing how that works. And don't worry about your pin mark because we're covering this with fabric. Okay, I would say that's just about perfect. Yep. So we're going to keep that. And so now if you do want to go ahead and make your cover sturdier than the card that you have. Again, I'm going to just use like one layer, I think, of the folder. And I am just going to essentially, you know what? Maybe I'm going to do 2 times. Yeah. We're going to make this one really sturdy. So I'm going to take my glue, cover the entire inner cover. You could glue, ooh, you know what would maybe be a better idea? Forgive me, guys. This is, if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Jessica. I have ADHD and I am just a little all over the place sometimes, but okay. I'm going to use one of these layers on the inside and one on the outside because I did just think that the outer image of my box is pretty bold, and I'm still debating on which fabric to cover it with, but so basically we're gonna go like this. This doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna be covering it. And then we'll trim this off, but then I'm also going to glue this on this side, and then we'll trim as well. So instead of making you watch that whole process, I will get these trimmed down and we'll have a sturdier cover to start with, and then we can get into the more fun stuff. So I wanted to show you this part when I'm gluing on the second layer. I did cut out the window too. I just traced it, and I did the same for the top layer. And I'll just kind of line that up the best I can. Again, we're gonna be covering this all with fabric, so it doesn't have to look pretty now. And then I'm gonna trim this and then put my second layer on and trim that. It's starting to look a little prettier, but we still have some steps left. We're gonna first of all cover this in a muslin fabric. This is just what I like to do. Sometimes I will also decide to make this a plush journal, and I will add a layer of batting, and that gives it a little bit of extra softness. I don't have any today, so I am simply going to just glue down some muslin fabric first and then my final fabric. This is just a preference. You don't actually have to do so many layers of fabric. I just like how it ends up feeling. Now, I will say this glue, I swear it never used to seep through the fabric and show glue lines, but for some reason, I think the formula changed and it does now on certain fabrics. So I'm gonna take the time to spread it out all like this, and I'm just gonna go cover by cover. Even though we're gonna have a fabric over the top of it, I'm just gonna do my best here to get rid of any glue lines possibly. And so we're just gonna cover it to start out just like this. We'll cut out that circle once we have the other layer of fabric. So then I'm just gonna pull this to the side, and then I'm just gonna keep gluing all the way across and just kind of pulling tight and flattening it out, and I'm getting this all over. So we're going to do this same exact step. Now, when we're done gluing this all down, we're going to add glue right on top of this fabric, and we're going to place our final fabric on top, which I'm going to go for this one right here. This is from Junk Journal Creations. So once I have both glued down, I'll show you the next step. It's all covered and smoothed out the best that we can. So now we are going to cut an angle at all of the corners, and you do want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of fabric next to that corner, if that makes sense. So I already did those for the 4 corners, and now we're going to go ahead and basically wrap this like a present. We're going to add a little bit of glue around the border of this, and we're going to wrap the edges. And I am going to sew all along the border, but I like to go ahead and wrap this first, and then it will secure everything down. And since I have 2 layers of fabric here, I may need to add glue in between those, but I'll start out like this. Then once we have all of these wrapped around, we'll work on cutting out this center here. but I want to get everything nice and tight pulled around before we do that. And this is going to help really smooth out that fabric also. Once it's all wrapped around, we're going to go ahead and snip a little piece of this fabric in the center here. That's how I like to start it, at least. And now what I want to do is, since we have a circular shape that we're working with, I am going to cut like this. I'm going to cut at an A, almost like we're going to cut like an X, basically. Like this. We're not cutting the fabric all the way off. We'll go down here to that bottom corner, and same over here. This is just going to help us be able to wrap this around now so that we have nice edges. Now, essentially, this isn't going to show probably because we are having the frame on the outside, but just in case, we want to try to make everything have nice edges when we can. So now I'm just going to add glue again, and same thing, we're just pulling it and getting it as tight as possible. And if I need to trim any of this fabric, I can. Like if it's going to be a little bit too long for this width, I can trim that. But so far, I think everything is going to work just fine. And if this isn't getting pulled around nice enough, you may need to cut a few more slits like this, if that makes sense. And I'll do that with this too. And that's just going to help wrap every little section a little bit better. So I'll continue wrapping these around. See, this is a little too long for up here, so I'm just going to trim that. And this is all going to get covered, so it doesn't look pretty now, but it will. So now that we have this all done, we can move on to the next step. Before I sew this, I kind of want to prep our window. And what I mean is that I noticed when I did this the first time that you can see, you're going to be able to see the back of the frame, and it's just white. Remember, this is all going to be covered. But yeah, this is all white, and I wanted it to be a little bit prettier. So what I am going to do, not necessary, but just an extra little step, adding some detail. I'm going to first of all add just a little brown ink so it's not so stark white. And then I'm actually going to stamp on top of this too. And chances are only a little bit of the inside window are going to show anyways, but just in case, it'll be extra pretty. So I just have some, I'm not even going to do this perfect. I have some floral stamps here, and I'm just going to randomly stamp some floral stamps all up and down it. I got some leaves here and things like that. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but ooh, that's actually really pretty. That right there. We'll change it out, maybe do some leaves like this. So it'll look like there's some greenery and some pretty things all around it. There we go. And let's go ahead and do this one right here. Oops. And it's really okay if it doesn't stamp perfectly, because again, I don't even know if we're going to see this, but if we are, it's going to look gorgeous. I'm going to do that one a little bit sideways and then like that. Okay, so that was pretty quick and easy. So once this is all stamped, we can go ahead and add our acetate, unless you want to add any greenery or ribbon that's going to wind around the window, and I definitely do. So I think I'm just going to start with a little bit of glue here, starting on the inside, so like that. This glue will eventually hold it in place, but then I'm just going to wrap it around. And I think I'm just going to go like up half of it but you could get really creative with this part, or you could decorate on top of the window once you have it on, but I know that I wanted this to wrap around, so do that. Okay, I am going to trim that and then glue it in place. Don't know where my other scissors went. And then I'm just going to kind of play around, with the placement. You got to kind of have 3 hands for this. So while I'm holding this in place, I'm actually going to glue on the acetate on the back now. I did kind of mess up the stamping a little bit, but again, that's going to be all right. So for this part, I'm just going to carefully add glue on the window. I don't want this to seep out too much, because if it gets on the acetate and seeps through, it can look kind of messy. I also don't want to mess up our stamping too much. So then I'm just going to go ahead, and I have a piece that is a little bigger than necessary. We can trim that later once everything dries. So now I'm going to put something heavy on this and just let this dry for a good 10 minutes before doing anything else. While we're waiting for that acetate to dry, I'm going to cover the inside, because again, I want this definitely to be prettier. I don't want to cover the entire back because I want there to be an actual window. Now, if you wanted to have an image peeking through your window, this would be the time to add your image. And what I would do, let's say I was going to have this be the image peeking through the window, I would line up where I want the image to be. That's actually so cute. And I would probably glue that down just like it was, and then I would cover it with a more pretty background. And I may do that for one of these window journals, is just have a picture peeking through like that. Super cute, but not for this one. I'm gonna have the entire window open and have it be a little pocket. So to cover this, I just cut some scrapbook paper right here, and I'm gonna place it kind of where I want it without cutting it yet. And once again, we're gonna trace that window. And then I will carefully, so that I don't get any ink on the fabric, I'm going to cut that out, and then we'll place down the inside cover. In case any of the paper peeks through, I'm actually just going to take my ink and go like this so that it's not stark white. Good enough. Then we're going to go ahead and glue this down. Now, if you wanted to add a ribbon closure, now would be the time. I'm actually going to use this really cute floral. And so I'm going to just kind of figure out how much I want. Times 2. I'm going to do one for the front and back. And we'll sandwich that in between the front cover and this paper right here. So I'm going to glue on these covers, and then we're going to take it to this sewing machine. Finally, I just added some glue underneath that, and then I will place this down right on top. I'm just going to sew around the entire border now. And I figured I would just tell you what settings I'm using. I am going to be doing a zigzag stitch at 4.0 for the length. And you saw how many layers of cardboard I was using, and it really has no trouble, but I am going kind of slow. And the other thing is I'm using a regular needle, just so you can kind of, those are the questions I get a lot when I'm talking about sewing paper or covers like this. So you can see I just really take my time with this. So the last step now is to place our window. And you can use whatever glue you're comfortable with, but I will be using the Tombow Mono Aqua. And I'm just gonna glue all the way around the edge. I still am being careful not to have it ooze out onto the acetate, but I also want there to be enough that it's going to be secure. And again, I'm gonna place this on there where I want it. And then I'm gonna let this dry with something very heavy on top for a couple hours actually. But real quick, I do want to show you one last thing that you can do if you wanted to have an image peeking through or have that possibility. Either have showing what's on the first page of your first signature peek through the window, or what I did, and my camera stopped dying. My camera died, so I'm refilming this part. I sewed 2 pieces of acetate together and I just glued around, and this is on the inside cover. And then I have just a little book page slipped down in here. I'll probably make this into a tag, but you can see how you can still have the see-through, and you can't even tell from the front that there's another pocket there. So it's like you'll have options, and I like this best. But let me show you how cute it could be to slip this through. And I would say it's almost cute enough just to make this permanent. However, I like options, and since I do make these journals for other people, it's kind of nice to have the options. But look how cute that is. And I really like how the image is almost sunk down a bit, and I don't know that you'll be able to really see that in person, but it's not flush with the window, and I think it's so cute that way. So we're all done with the cover. Of course, now is the time when you can add any metal book corners or center charm rings or anything like that, but I just wanted to film the most important part. I will show all of these final window journals in a flip through when I'm all done, but for now, that's it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you guys soon. Have a good day. Bye.